workshops, seminars, internships, and more delivered by our world-renowned experts, catered toward improving your innovative and entrepreneurial abilities, structured to fit around your schedule, whether you are a working professional or a student. Secure your future now. Sign up for our Gateways program here at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. Learn more about Gateways to Global Careers. Visit our website www.salcc.edu.lc.
In 2021, owners of 10 small to medium-sized businesses on island were chosen to be a part of Massey Store's first ever Because We Care campaign, receiving assistance and guidance in several areas, including production, packaging, and marketing. Krishna Valsin is company's local supplier relations coordinator. From her vantage point, Season 1 was a huge success for both the suppliers and Massey Stores, particularly in the area of brand awareness and visibility.
Most suppliers don't have the finances to undergo any marketing promotions or any feature of the item. So they welcomed the promotion and the campaign that Massey had last year, the Because We Care campaign. It showed the items, it featured them at the different locations and on the social media pages. They were excited, even though they were shy, they were excited, they were happy that they were interviewed and the products were out there so persons could see.
Division Head for Local Supplier Relations Linda Auger says beyond product awareness and visibility, the success of the campaign was felt through the partnerships that are being forged with agencies that support the growth and development of the sector in St. Lucia.
We have had the opportunity to partner with Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. They invited us to do a presentation to a class of budding entrepreneurs for us to explain to them how to get into the Massey stores, what do they need to provide new products and to get into the manufacturing process. We were very excited to do this. It helps in training and giving the knowledge to people who are interested but just do not know where to start.
Mrs. Auger says while the focus of Season 2 will be similar to the first, some new elements have been added to showcase and expose other ways in which local suppliers contribute to national development, such as environmental sustainability.
The second phase, we are looking at not only introducing new people to our market and new suppliers, but we're also looking at our suppliers that have been with us for several years, many years in fact. How can we work with them to improve their offering, whether it's by extending their offering, their product line, whether it's by helping them with merchandising, whether it's by helping them with any other type of activity.
Season 2 of Massey Store's Because We Care campaign is scheduled to kick off next month, featuring Chemical Manufacturing and Investment Company Limited, manufacturers of chemical products, as the first local supplier.
Hello everyone, my name is Gail Sharpless and I am an English and Mass Communication lecturer here at the Dominica State College. I am also the advisor for the Culventure Club and for the Sign Language Club. In this video, you will learn about the benefits of activities that are beyond the academics. Although academics are very important, having a balance is also very important. Thus, getting involved in activities such as clubs, athletics, and the student governments can be very beneficial to you. Here are some of the benefits. You will enjoy your college experience more. You will meet students who share similar interests like you. Your social skills and communication skills will be improved. Your leadership skills will be strengthened. You will gain self-confidence. You will learn to manage your time wisely. And finally, you will become a well-rounded individual who will make a meaningful contribution to the workforce. Again, I wish you all the best as you begin this new journey. Welcome to the Dominica State College.
Hi there, my name is Cleavon Vidal, Sports Coordinator for the Dominica State College. I'd like to tell you more about our sports at the Dominica State College. We offer sports like cricket, basketball, volleyball, netball, table tennis, track and field, and so much more. To participate in any one of these sporting disciplines, all you have to do is find me or come to the Student Services Department and ask for the sports coordinator. So be part of our family, be part of our victories. Come and play for the Dominica State College.
St. Lucia is one of the hottest investment locations in the English-speaking Caribbean, with a thriving tourism sector and so much room for expansion, prime real estate and shovel-ready projects, a powerful passport, BPO, KPO, and the potential to be a hub of technological development. Globally prized, high-quality products for agro-processing and all the capacity for manufacturing. It's all here. Invest St. Lucia invites you to come. Make it your own.
Good morning and welcome to the closing ceremony and the finals debate of the 2022 Windward Islands Debating Competition under the theme Intellectual Enrichment for Leadership. Today we will begin with a short opening ceremony before the debate. Please reverence yourself for prayer, and I invite Ms. Darlene Francis to lead us in prayer.
Can we all join our hands and close our eyes? Thank you, God, for allowing us to be here another day. Thank you for those who have made it this far. I thank you for the intellectual minds that you have blessed them with. Thank you for the wisdom and the ideas that you have assisted them in developing. I thank you for the guidance that you have given us today. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
Amen. You may relax. Those of you who are with us in person, you may be seated. Our online audience, I will acknowledge our Chair of the Board of Governors, Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, who will be joining us later today, Mr. Cletus Springer. The Vice Principal of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Dr. Merle Sinclair Auguste. The Dean of Academic Affairs, Dr. Winston Fulgence, who will address us a bit later. All of the heads of the colleges joining us, that is the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, the Dominica State College, and the T.A. Marishaw Community College. Members of the WIDC Regional Planning Committee, specially invited guests, faculty and staff of all of our represented community colleges, esteemed debaters, and online viewers joining us via the SALCC YouTube page. Good morning once again, and welcome to our final day of the 2022 Windward Islands Debating Competition. My name is Natalie Julie Fanis, and I will be your mistress of ceremony for today. And as we begin, I invite Dr. Winston Fulgence, Dean of Academics at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, to make the opening remarks. Dr. Fulgence.
Hi, good morning all. Permit me to adopt protocol already established. I promise to be very, very brief. It's about the students today and not about talking heads. Okay, at the college here today, I think we're very, very proud to have been hosts for this event and to have been able to host this event during the pandemic period. This event has been postponed, I think, for 2 years, for 1 year, okay, and of course it's because of the pandemic. We're very happy to have been able to provide this platform for the students and to ensure that the debate continues. We're using technology, and from what I heard yesterday, the competition has been very, very fierce. I'm a bit disappointed that we can't fly the flag today, but the point of this is to create orators in the Caribbean and to enrich our youth. I'd like to congratulate all of those who have turned out as not having won and those who have won. I hope that the finals will be a very enriching and educational experience. And I hope that the enrichment that our students receive will allow them to be able to make broad contributions to the societies that they're a part of. With those brief remarks, I'd like to say all the best to the winners, and for those who have not won, remember, this is all part of a process. You are better for it. You're leaving here with an experience that you normally would not have had. All the best to both teams this morning, and may the best team win. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fulgence, for your words of encouragement. And let me just let our viewership know that if they missed yesterday's debate, it will remain on the SALCC YouTube channel, so you can go in there and watch it again. Yesterday's debaters were articulate, passionate, very convincing as they presented their arguments, and we will shortly get into who will be contesting later today. But before I do that, I want to invite someone who's been an advocate and who has been behind this debate from the inception, as she was the one at the helm of the college when we were approached to start this competition with Sir Arthur Lewis hosting the inaugural 2017 competition. So I would like to invite now Dr. Merle Sinclair Auguste, the Vice Principal of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, to deliver some brief remarks.
Good morning. Grateful morning to all. We continue today with empowering our students to this experience of debate. We're fostering skills of critical thinking, critical reflection, tolerance, understanding of varying perspectives, empathy, and the list goes on. Essentially, we're developing a route or continuing to develop a route for lifelong learning. Yesterday, oh what a day. And as we reflect critically on yesterday, on the spirited debate, let us not forget, we develop, we grow, we learn. Permit me to share a few words on the benefits of debate, which were shared yesterday by many persons who addressed the audience and our debaters. And I'm just going to do a little snippet of things that just resonated with me. For example, shaping future Caribbean leaders, opportunities for regional integration and cooperation, self-determination, seeing different facets of self, insularity is our worst enemy. Somebody made that statement yesterday. We bring together issues of relevance and community. We're creating lasting bonds. This is part of the experience in the process of the debate process as we're going through it now. Bringing together LIDC and WIDC, that all our students are winners by virtually stepping forward with courage and bringing their voice to the table. And I think that was mentioned by our esteemed moderator. And it raised, tugged on my memory, and I'd like to share a quote about courage by a gentleman named Chesterton. He said, "Courage is almost a contradiction in terms. It means a strong desire to live, taking the form of readiness to die." And from our sister island of Dominica, a quote resonated with me, and she referenced Mandela, who said, "A good leader can engage in debate frankly and thoroughly, knowing that at the end, he and the other side must be closer and thus emerge stronger." Another sister, one of our colleagues, said, "Represent your college with distinction and honor." And all of you have done that. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, you have represented the college, your country, with distinction and honor. WIDC is truly a family, the way in which the regional committee collaborates. We appreciate the work of all members of the regional committee, participating colleges, countries. So, today, I encourage one and all to support our courageous youth, our students, as we continue this intellectual debate. Remember, enjoy the process. It continues well after we leave our respective colleges. It is for a lifetime. At every opportunity, I'd like to recognize the work of the St. Lucia Planning Committee, led by our very own Dr. Kathy Depredine and her able team of varying talents. We are most grateful for all of your efforts. And so, ladies and gentlemen, yesterday, our students took on monogamy and online learning. Today, the vaccine mandate. We wish all of you the best. Let's go. Let's start this thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Auguste, for your words. Gave you a lot of context there in terms of what happened yesterday and motivating you. So we are ready to meet our teams that will be participating today in the finals of the WIDC 2022 debating competition. And let me just add a little bit of background. So the competition would normally happen in a host country with all of the participating colleges being physically in that country, in the same room, before a panel of judges. So because of the pandemic, and people think we missed 2 years because in 2020, we made it happen. We actually flew to Dominica from Grenada, St. Vincent, St. Lucia in March, right before the shutdown happened in our various islands. So we were able to do that final debate in person at the start of the pandemic. So what happens today, we are all in our different islands, but we are all coming to the judges virtually. So even though St. Lucia is hosting and we are responsible for providing the judges, the judges are not seeing us in person. The St. Lucia team yesterday was also coming to the judges virtually. So I just thought I would give a little explanation to that. So as MC, I will introduce the debate teams, the moderator, and the judges. We will go to the judges' room in just a little bit. But before I do that, after yesterday's competition, the two schools which emerged victorious from their debates on online learning and monogamy were Dominica and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So congratulations to them once again. But I really want again to recognize the work of Grenada and St. Lucia. They represented exceptionally well, and I want to give them a round of applause. So my technical people, if I could have the two teams on screen, because they would need to recite the WIDC pledge before we get started. So let me just give you a few seconds to get the St. Vincent and the Grenadines team and the Dominica team on screen so that we can hear them recite the pledge. So let's just wait a couple minutes for that as they are getting this on. And there has been a change in the debaters who will be representing those teams. So I will let you know that from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, who will be proposing the moot today that our moderator will introduce, we have Marika Baptiste and Naisha Richards. And from Dominica, we have Hananel Valerie and Noah James. These are the representatives from the two islands, and we are getting ready for them to recite the pledge. Beautiful, wonderful. So over to you, debaters. Recital of the WIDC pledge. I hope we all heard that. Thank you very much, debaters, for reciting the pledge, your commitment to holding up the integrity of this debating competition. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I will ask again now for us to go over to the room where our judges are located. We introduced them yesterday, but I will just go through their names. And in the order that you see them sitting on the screen, I think that's from the extreme left. We have one change in the judges. And with us today is Ms. Jem I. Sanford Johnson, who is an attorney at law. So a round of applause for Ms. Johnson, and we thank her for joining us. Next to her is Mr. Leighton Khan, who was here with us yesterday. Welcome again, and thank you, Mr. Khan, for joining us. And next to Mr. Khan is Miss Melissa Irving. So these three judges are responsible for the main debate, the content of the debate, but we also recognize our best speakers, and we have specific judges for that. So let me introduce to you Miss Onel Sanford Bell, secondly running, and Miss Janika Simon. So these are our slate of judges for day 2 of the Windward Island debate competition. And ladies and gentlemen, I now hand over to our very able moderator, alumna of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. We're very proud of that, Miss Raisa Joseph.
Thank you immensely, Mrs. Jolie Fannis, and a warm welcome to all our viewers in studio and those on our YouTube and Facebook streams. Today's final will be contested by students of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College and the Dominica State College. The moot will be, countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Students from SVGCC will be proposing the moot. Students from the Dominica State College will be opposing. I wish to remind our debaters of the following rules. The leader of the proposition shall make his or her case for a maximum of 10 minutes. The leader of the opposition shall then make his or her case for a maximum of 10 minutes. The second speaker of the proposition shall make his or her case for a maximum of 7 minutes. And the second speaker of the opposition shall then make his or her case for a maximum of 7 minutes. The leader of the opposition shall have a maximum of 5 minutes for rebuttal, and then the leader of the proposition shall have a maximum of 5 minutes for his or her rebuttal. At the end of each speaker's allotted time, the speaker will vacate the lectern. Today, following each speaker's presentation, there will be a 2-minute interval to allow our judges to tabulate and to score each speaker. The timekeeper shall give a warning signal of 1 minute before the expiration of the speaker's allotted time, and again at the end of the allotted time. Now it is time to begin the finals of our debate. We wish both teams the very best and look forward to a very intellectually stimulating debate. Once again, our moot is, countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their population. Our first speaker, coming from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, is Marika Baptiste. Welcome, Ms. Baptiste. While we await Ms. Baptiste coming on to our screen as she prepares herself, normally our first speaker for each team has the responsibility of establishing the debate, ensuring that the proposition's case is laid out, and then thereafter the seconder extends on the debate, solidifying any points that the first speaker may have left out and building upon it. That will be followed by the opposition's leader, who will thereafter establish his or her case and will be supported by a seconder. Additional rules for our debaters as we await our first speaker are as follows. Following the rebuttals, while we await our first speaker due to some technical difficulties, we will go to a brief ad, and thereafter we shall resume. We thank you immensely, viewers, for your attention and support. We encourage you to share our live feeds with friends and family, colleagues, so that you too may enjoy what we found very stimulating yesterday and for us to find out what is in the minds of our young people on a very topical debate that deals with vaccine mandates. You hear it all the time in the streets, in our living rooms, in our bars.
Here are ways to reduce your plastic bag use. 1. Refuse plastic and take your own reusable bags when you shop. 2. Reuse your single-use plastic bags when you shop until they are no longer fit for the job. 3. Repurpose your plastic bags and use them to line your trash can, paint trays, and more. 4. Dispose of your plastic bags by recycling. Shop wisely and reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle.
Thank you for staying tuned. And for those of you just joining us, we're just about to kick off the finals of the Windward Island Debating Competition 2022. And our topic for debate today is: countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Our team which will be proposing the moot will be the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, and the team opposing will be the Dominica State College. We now welcome Ms. Marika Baptiste, who will make her case for her team. She will have 10 minutes within which to make her presentation. Marika?
Shh! Don't say it. Don't talk about vaccines. And more importantly, don't mention mandates, lest you want them to shout, "Off with your head." But today, that is a risk we're willing to take, and much the objection of our opposition, we're even willing to be beheaded to support today's moot, because that is how strongly we believe that countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Context is important, and clarity is a must. So naturally, for the purpose of this debate, allow me to help you to understand just what a vaccine mandate is. You see, a vaccine mandate is really just an official policy that makes getting a vaccine specific to that policy necessary or compulsory for certain people or conditions. Now is also an opportune time for me to also declare that the terms inoculate or inoculation and vaccinate or vaccination will be used interchangeably during my discourse. Vaccine mandates are old and proven. They work in the national interest of populations, and they significantly aid in the reduction of virus transmissions, which is why we agree that countries do have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Be not distracted by unnecessary noise created by misguided, overzealous anti-vaccination mandate supporters, as the introduction of vaccine mandates is not a new phenomenon. During the 1777 American Revolutionary War, General George Washington, who later became President George Washington, required all American troops to be inoculated against smallpox. Guess what that was? A vaccine mandate. In 1806, the sister of King Napoleon and ruler of Lucca and Piombino, Elisa Bonaparte, ruled that all newborn babies and adults must be vaccinated. Guess what that was again? A vaccine mandate. In 1809, the state of Massachusetts in the United States of America passed the following law. It reads, and I quote, "Boards of health, if in their opinion it is necessary for public health or safety, shall require and enforce the vaccination and revaccination of all the inhabitants of their towns, and shall provide them with the means of free vaccination. Whoever chooses to refuse or neglects to comply to such requirements shall forfeit $5." End of quotation. Madam Moderator, say it with me now. That was a vaccine mandate. By 1880, all 50 states in the USA had laws requiring vaccines for children to attend public schools. In many of these states, these mandates apply to children at all grade levels and those in licensed preschool settings. The required vaccines were either specified in the law itself or were chosen by a state health officer or the state health board. So here, Madam Chairperson, Madam Moderator, we can see that the premise of a vaccine mandate has been perpetuated throughout American history, all the way to the front lines, to the classrooms. Even today, of the 19 Caribbean countries served by the Caribbean Epidemiology Center, all have long-standing vaccine mandates, including the Commonwealth, Dominica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Let me let you in on a little secret. You nor I can be admitted into a public school in St. Vincent and the Grenadines or Dominica without having complied to an entire list of vaccine mandates stipulated by those countries. Come to think of it, Madam Moderator, we all know this, so it's really not a secret at all. I am sure that every single member of both debate teams have had to comply with inoculation mandates since the beginning of our academic life. And Madam Moderator, it is no coincidence that the viruses or diseases for which inoculation was required by national policy have since then been eradicated or close to eradication. This is solid proof that while the decision to enforce a vaccine mandate may not always be immediately appreciated by all, it is necessary for the protection of the health of our populations. Additionally, Madam Moderator, countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates for the protection of their populations, since said mandates exist for the greater national good of these countries. In any democracy, we elect officials because we trust them and we are directly putting our lives in their hands. When the economy takes a downturn, we call on our governments to protect us and implement fiscal measures. When crimes and other social ills start rising, we call on our government to protect us. When our health is jeopardized, what do? Once more, we call on our government to protect us. The National Conference of State Legislators 2021 states, and I quote, "Good health results not only from proper medical care, but from the efforts to craft and implement public policies and programs to protect and improve the health of all people. Sometimes this is only achievable via compulsory means. I am only 16 years old and I know this. So I know that you know this. The opposition knows this. In fact, UNICEF and USAID commissioned Caribbean Development Research Services, Inc. commissioned the Caribbean Development Research Services, Inc. to conduct a COVID-19 vaccine hesitancy survey report in 2021. And you couldn't believe the findings. The support for mandatory vaccines in Dominica was high. 75% of Dominicans supported mandatory vaccination for all arriving visitors. 71% supported it for frontline or elder care medical workers. 66% 65% supported it for public servants, 68% supported it for hotel or tourism sectors, 67% supported it for taxi bus and minibus drivers, also conductors, 61% supported it for secondary or tertiary school students, and 52% supported it for primary school students. Madam Moderator, looking at these impressive percentages, I have to say kudos to Dominica, because even they too know the importance of vaccine mandates. They too support our stance that countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Finally, and perhaps the most obvious, countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates as they help to curb the transmission of viruses through stringent control. According to a 2020 study by Vaz et al. On mandatory vaccines in Europe, for countries that have mandatory measles vaccinations, incidence of transmissions were 86% lower than in countries without those mandates. These mandates help governments to work towards herd immunity and safety for all. Even the persons who might be too busy arguing about his or her individual right to go and get the vaccine. Herd immunity protects everyone. Where there's a significantly high proportion of the population being vaccinated, transmission of the infecting agent is halted thereby, protecting even the unvaccinated, which includes those who are possibly too young, too vulnerable, and too immunosuppressed to take the vaccines. If people with their selfish ways and individualistic attitudes won't protect them, then, Madam Moderator, the mandate will. And that is why we support countries having the right to impose vaccine mandates to protect their populations. Madam Moderator, we understand how emotional this topic can be. I mean, we are talking about the lives of our citizens. But we believe in such a case where it is so important, logic should trump emotion. So we continue to support countries having a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect their population, since mandates are not new or a foreign concept. Their implementation continues to work in the national interest of countries. And once again, they significantly aid in the reduction of the transmission of viruses. Today, I say to you, let us let logic trump emotions.
We have just heard, ladies and gentlemen, from the leader of the proposition of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, Ms. Marika Baptiste. Our judges will now continue their tally for this speaker, and they will be evaluating the following criteria: soundness of points, logical development, audibility and clarity, posture and personality, command of material, which will bring us to a total of 100 points. After the leader of the proposition, we will soon be welcoming the leader of the opposition, who will have his opportunity to establish his case for the Dominica State College, establishing key points of the opposition, key terms within the moot, and laying the foundation for his seconder. We are reminded that each leader of each team will have 10 minutes to make their presentation, and their seconders will have 7 minutes. Our moot for our debate is: countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Both teams will have ample opportunities, not just in the opening round to solidify their points, but also in the rebuttal round, where each team will have 5 minutes to make a presentation in which they not only reiterate to us and to the judges why their team should be victorious or have won the debate, but also they have the opportunity to diminish the arguments presented by the opposing team. At the end of today's debate, we will be able to crown the winner of the Windward Islands Debating Competition for 2022. Who do you believe will be victorious? If you joined us yesterday, you saw a quite contested debate where our participants presented with flair, with content and research, very sound arguments that our judges applauded. And today we look forward to having similarly interesting debating points brought up by our contestants. At this time, I wish to welcome the leader of the opposition from the Dominica State College, Mr. Hananel Valerie, who will make his presentation for 10 minutes. Mr. Valerie, are you ready?
Madam Moderator, honorable judges, my esteemed colleague, my most worthy opponents, listening audience, good morning. August 6, 2021, BBC World News headline: St. Vincent and the Grenadines leader hit during anti-vaccine mandate protests. Images of a bloody Prime Minister, Ralph Gonsalves, dominate media circuits. January 10, 2022, Caribbean Loop News reports Guadeloupe continues to be a hotbed for violent defiance against the French government's coronavirus vaccine mandate. Images of roadblocks, barrages of boulders thrown at law enforcement, and vandalized buildings set on fire dominate the media. It's appalling, Madam Moderator, to think that people somewhere, somehow, people in this very virtual space think that imposing vaccine mandates is a good idea. I stand here this morning, Madam Moderator, in defiant opposition to the moot. Countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. A ludicrous proposition which my colleague and I will thoroughly obliterate. Today, we will convince you that countries do not have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations based on three substantive points. One, imposing vaccine mandates is a major infringement on one's personal autonomy. Two, mandatory vaccination can also infringe on other critical human rights. And additionally, one's health is a personal responsibility. And there are many other considerations that need to be made when putting out a mandate. Allow me to first define the key terms of this mood. According to Cornell University, a right is a power or privilege held by an entity as a result of constitution, statute, regulation, judicial precedent, or other law. To impose, according to the Oxford Dictionary, means to force an unwelcome decision or ruling on someone. A mandate, Madam Moderator, according to Merriam-Webster, is simply an authoritative command. No ifs, no buts, no shoulds, must. Lastly, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, the CDC, describes a vaccine as a preparation that is used to stimulate the body's immune response against diseases. In essence, Madam Moderator, the moot is saying that countries have the power to force citizens via an authoritative command to take something to stimulate their immune response. Force them authoritatively? A bit reminiscent of slavery days, if you ask me, Madam Moderator. On to my first substantive point. My worthy opponents, countries simply do not have the right to impose a vaccine mandate on a human being as it infringes upon their personal autonomy. According to encyclopedia.com, personal autonomy refers to a person's sense of self-determination, of being able to make choices regarding the direction of his or her own actions, including the freedom to pursue these choices. Vaccine mandates are compulsive and oppressive as there are consequences or losses for not complying to take a job. I'll refer again, my most worthy opponents, to the situation in your own country, St. Vincent. According to the Sun newspaper in Turks and Caicos Islands, written November 1st, and entitled, "Public Servants in St. Vincent Must Vaccinate by November 19 or Lose Their Jobs." Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves is reported to have said, and I quote, "Those who refuse to take the job will have no choice but to leave their job once there is no exemption," end of quote. This is a complete compromise of freedom of choice, and it begs the question, if you can be compelled to take a job, or in local parlance, if the doctor can choke a needle in your skin, what else will you be compelled to do? Madam Moderator, permit me to reference the famous Declaration of Helsinki of 1975, which according to the World Health Organization is a statement of ethical principles to provide guidance to physicians and other subjects involved in medical research involving humans. The declaration states, and I quote, "Concerns for the interests of the subject or person must always prevail over the interests of society and science," and end of quote. Madam Moderator, people have a right to refuse medical treatment much more than countries have a right to impose, and that includes vaccination. Secondly, countries do not have the right to enforce vaccination because it infringes on other human rights. The UN General Assembly published the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in a Paris meeting in 1948. Within this document, 30 articles of entitlements to every individual, regardless of age, gender, and religion, were written. Vaccine mandates impose the state's authority over these rights, effectively revoking a citizen's access to these crucial rights. Namely, these include, and I quote, freedom of movement and also freedom of thought and expression. Many mandates restrict the places people can go to and the things they can do without proof of vaccination. Mandates prohibit the majority of people who are unvaccinated from accessing services other than supermarkets and other essential services. Therefore, once freedom is compromised, it's almost as if by not being vaccinated, one is placed under lockdown again. Madam Moderator, it's important to note that one's ethical, religious, and moral obligations also influence a decision to take a vaccine, and it is a tedious legal process to make a case or provide evidence for a justified exemption if not already provided under law. This leads to probing in people's personal life. Do you really want that? Questions like, were you in church last Sunday? In an interview with the New York Times, Jonathan Sumption, a former judge on the British Supreme Court, put it this way, and I quote, "There are things governments should not do, even if they work. People will be deprived of many rights to go about their daily lives. Tell me, what is it we are trying to achieve? Cooperation or compliance?" Madam Moderator, what about our personal responsibility to protect our health, my health, your health? For years, we have heard the catchphrase, your health, your responsibility. Why can't the people have the right and responsibility to take the vaccine out of their free own will rather than being forced by the government? Additionally, the presence of a vaccine mandate assumes that people are unable or unwilling to make the best choice to protect their own health. And if they are hesitant about vaccination, they are reckless and criminal in their actions. According to an article in November by Brownstone Institute, read the COVID-19 vaccine, and I quote, "Many of the vaccine hesitant were the heroes of last year. Nurses, policemen, firefighters, truckers, and others who kept society functioning." In an October 19 White House press conference, a reporter asked U.S. Press Secretary John Psaki, and I quote, "If the whole point of a vaccine mandate is to make people safer, but a vaccine mandate also means tons of police and military may work up the job, then at the end of the day, does a vaccine mandate make people safer?" End of quote. Madam Moderator, may I also add that the large demographic of people who were specifically hesitant about the COVID-19 vaccine were open to practicing other COVID prevention measures and even with more due caution due to their status. In a scientific study published by Northeastern University in October entitled "COVID Contradiction, They Wear Masks but Won't Get Vaccinated," it was found that the second largest demographic in the US was the unvaccinated wearing masks. They are following the protocols. Barbara Juen, a health psychologist at the University of Innsbruck, told Austrian broadcaster ORF on December 2nd, "For those who are afraid, we have no trust. For those whose assessment of risk is low, for them, it is important that they are listened to and that their concerns are taken seriously." End of quote. Madam Moderator, our stance on this issue is clear. Countries absolutely do not have a right to impose vaccine mandates for whatever reason you give me. The attempt to force citizens to be vaccinated is an assault on their autonomy, infringes on their human rights, and wrongfully negates their individual responsibility and capability to safeguard their own health. It was the great Chinese philosopher Confucius who wrote, and I quote, "Do not impose on others what you yourself do not desire." End of quote. Do you desire for your autonomy and human rights to be infringed upon, my worthy opponents? For your own personal responsibility to secure your health to be trampled? If you don't, why do you propose such an imposition? Rethink, reconsider, reassess, my opponents. Countries don't have the right and they never will.
Thank you, Mr. Valerie. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of the first round where our opening speakers have established their case, proposing and opposing the moot. Countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. We will soon have the second speaker of the proposition, who will then be followed by the second speaker of the opposition, who will now present a cohesive argument as to whether we tend to agree or disagree with the mood before us today. Our judges who are currently tabulating will be looking at the following areas of assessment, which I wish to go through with you at this time. Soundness of points. How accurate are the points presented? Are they supported by examples, statistics, and quotes? Logical development. Are arguments developed along logical lines and presented in a well-ordered manner? Audibility and clarity. Can we hear the presentations, the arguments clearly and distinctly? Posture and personality. And I know for viewers, this tends to be the areas we focus on the most. Ability to reach out, capture, and hold the audience's attention through the effective use of body language. Command of language. Must be comfortable with the proper usage of grammar, vocabulary, and expression. Coordination. There should be a clear link between the leader's and the seconder's argument. Recall and analysis. Remembering and explaining or paraphrasing the opponent's points. Spontaneity. An impromptu delivery that is not dependent on solely reading from pre-written text. Command of material. Awareness of all matters relating to the subject and familiarity with the script. And body language. Appropriate facial expression, moderate and appropriate gestures and movement. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome the second speaker of the proposition of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, Ms. Naisha Richards. Ms. Richards, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
You may begin.
Nobody wants to talk about it, but there is an elephant in the room. While I am overjoyed to be participating in the annual Windward Islands debating competition, it is less than ideal that we must do so virtually. For instead of standing in your presence, ferociously debating, our discourse is confined to a screen. This is because we have a virus, COVID-19, that is affecting and threatening the health of our respective populations and disrupting the normal operations of the Windward Island debating competition. My team and I understand that while no doubt this decision was difficult to make, that it was done to ensure the health and the safety of all participants and to protect our loved ones. My team and I agree that sometimes tough choices must be made for the sake of the greater good. That is why we stand here today in unyielding agreement of the moot. Countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect their populations. I will continue to fortify our stance by making it unequivocally clear that vaccine mandates are a vital last resort that governments employ when all other alternatives have been exhausted, and that vaccine mandates ensure the safety of future generations. According to Dr. Hans Kluge, the Europe director of the World Health Organization, mandates around vaccination are an absolute last resort and only applicable when all other feasible options to improve vaccination uptake have been exhausted. Madam Moderator, with reference to the COVID-19 pandemic, I believe we can confidently say that we have tried it all. Travel restrictions, we have tried that. Dominica has tried that. A document released by the government of the Commonwealth of Dominica outlined several travel restrictions for the Nature Isle, effective July 23rd, 2021. It included varied restrictions for vaccinated and unvaccinated persons, children, families, and groups, as well as protocol for pre-arrival, quarantining, and testing. When these restrictions took effect, there were a total of 191 active cases in Dominica. 2 months later, the cases had skyrocketed to over 3,000 and only continued to rise. Public information campaigns, we've tried that. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, to combat the issue of vaccine hesitancy, the government invested substantially in campaigns that sought to educate and encourage the Vincentian public to take the COVID-19 vaccine. And yet, these campaigns clearly fell on deaf ears, as Loop News reported that the government was forced to donate over $70,000 worth of COVID-19 vaccines, as Vincentians were unwilling to get the jab. Madam Moderator, need I continue? Gentle encouragement, we've tried that. Incentives, we've tried that. Celebrity endorsements, we've tried that. Partial lockdown, total lockdown, tried that. No movement days, we've tried that. Social distancing, virtual schools, work from home, we have tried that. And yet, here we are. These are the kind of unfavorable and exhausting circumstances that often force the hand of governments to implement vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Governments had employed almost every tool in their arsenal to combat the spread of the COVID-19 virus, except for imposing vaccine mandates. Therefore, it was just and right for them to take decisive action and protect their populations using these mandates as a last resort. Additionally, Madam Moderator, these mandates safeguard future generations. American author Tom Allen said it best. Society has a moral obligation to our children that can easily be summarized. Protect them from harm. Vaccination mandates do exactly that. Case in point, the World Health Organization 2019 states that immunization and nutrition go hand in hand. Malnourished individuals, especially children, are more likely to die from infectious diseases if they are left unvaccinated. Thus, the World Health Organization's global strategy requires children be vaccinated against diphtheria, tetanus, tuberculosis, mumps, measles, rubella, polio, need I go on, and a plethora of other diseases. At this point, Madam Moderator, all of our immunization cards look like the worst game of bingo. But it is that same bingo card that has contributed substantially to us standing before you today. Moderator, vaccination mandates give children, all children, a fighting chance against these infectious diseases. That is why between 2010 and 2017, the mortality rate of children fell to 24%. Children below the age of 5 years old. Madam Moderator, this begs the question, what can be more right than doing right by our nation's children? Our governments have been entrusted with the responsibility and the power to lead us, to act in our best interest, to keep us safe, and it is time that we allow them to do so. Let us quickly revisit the facts. When all other alternatives fail, Vaccination mandates are there to protect populations. Furthermore, these mandates safeguard the future of our region by protecting the world's most vulnerable and valuable assets, our children. Remember this, the hardest choice and the right choice are often one and the same.
Thank you very much, Ms. Richards. Ladies and gentlemen, that was the presentation of the proposition of the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, which proposed the moot, countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Shortly, the opposition from the Dominica State College will have their opportunity to bring together their team's arguments as to why they are in opposition to the moot. We wish to remind you that this debate is not won by one speaker, but the entire team. The 10-minute presentation of each leader and the seconders matters tremendously, but also our rebuttals. Just to give you an indication of what our judges will be looking for when we come to that very crucial part of our debate, permit me to go through our criteria. The judges will look at team coordination, general analysis of debate, recall of points, ability to refute points, and spontaneity. When the seconder of the leader of the opposition comes forth to oppose the moot, he will have the opportunity in 7 minutes to close the argument of the opposition, to possibly refute some of the claims made by the team members from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College, and to perhaps convince you and the judges whether or not his team is the best team for today. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, our moot is: countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. I wonder, when you listen to the initial arguments presented, whether or not any of these arguments resonate with you. Is there an argument that you have not heard that you think possibly could really tip this debate in the direction of any team? Share your views on our YouTube and Facebook pages. We look forward to hearing what your views are on our debate. At this time, it is my pleasure to welcome the second speaker from the Dominica State College, Mr. Noah James. Mr. James, are you ready?
Yes. Madam Moderator, honorable judges, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, good day. Today, I rise with a singular focus to prove to you that countries do not have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their population. I will rubbish the ridiculous claims my opponents have made with 3 salient points. Number 1, the deception associated with certain historical events has rightfully rendered current generations apprehensive to take vaccines. Number 2, those with illnesses or underlying issues do succumb to the uncommon but life-threatening side effects of vaccines. Number 3, the uncertainty surrounding COVID vaccine. Jonathan Swift said, and I quote, "Falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it, so that when men come to be deceived, it is too late. The just is over." End quote. The spread of information has become very simple. However, the same can be said about misinformation. This is when we look towards our health advisors to reassure us. However, what if they too are misleading the public? Madam Moderator, we are not disputing that vaccines are effective. Actually, we agree that vaccines do benefit. However, the strict actions of imposing mandatory vaccines is not in the best interest of the populace, simply because falsehood flies. Madam Moderator, there have been cases where health officials misled the populace and hid the truth. According to an article published by McGill University in Canada, the popular Tuskegee study started in 1932, where 600 African American men were enlisted to partake in a scientific experiment on syphilis. They underwent several experiments which aided in the goal to observe the natural history of untreated syphilis in the black population. This was all done non-consensually. In actuality, no treatment was provided, even after penicillin was discovered as a safe and reliable cure for syphilis. The majority of men did not receive it. It can be very disheartening to hear that the people whom we look to for professional advice would blatantly deceive us. Madam Moderator, there are more occurrences. Another instance occurred in the mid-1950s. According to the Center of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, cigarette smoking causes cancer, heart disease, stroke, lung disease, diabetes, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. However, according to an article titled "Cigarettes Were Once Physician Tested and Approved," published on March 10, 2009, from the 1930s to the 1950s, doctors once lit up the pages of cigarette advertisements. Tobacco companies monopolized on the fact that patients fully trusted doctors' education and expertise. They used the public's trust in physicians in order to quell concerns about the dangers of smoking. I dare say, after all these years later, this trust still remains because the people recognize that things are not much different. It is not the health of the population that they are concerned, but the profit from the vaccines. Honorable judges, when we speak of mandating vaccines, we must take into consideration people who have conditions which preclude them from being safely vaccinated. After extensive research, it was found that negative reactions may occur if a patient who is on certain medication takes the flu vaccine. The site Medline Plus describes medication which is used to control certain types of seizures, medication to prevent and treat wheezing, shortness of breath, and chest tightness caused by asthma, chronic bronchitis, and other lung diseases, has a negative interaction with the flu vaccine. The National Library of Medication stated that approximately 300 million people worldwide currently have asthma. Madam Moderator, how can we claim that this is for the health of the people when there are serious health risks if mandatory vaccinations for one disease or the other is implemented? Madam Moderator, the World Health Organization stated that the percentage of people who need to be immune in order to achieve herd immunity varies with each disease. For example, herd immunity against measles requires about 95% of the population to be vaccinated. So, my worthy opponents, if we were to mandate all necessary vaccines, how many people would have to suffer? How many people would have to suffer for the bigger goal of herd immunity and eradication of illness? With a topic like this, it would be foolish not to highlight the current pandemic. The uncertainty of the vaccine associated with the COVID-19 is quite concerning. The first set of claims as to the vaccine spoke of the first 2 shots' safety. An article titled "Johnson & Johnson Vaccine Pause After Rare Clotting Case Emerged" describes that the Johnson & Johnson vaccine was recalled in the United States for claims of blood clots in women, ages from 18 to 48 years. The next aspect which was put into question was the effectiveness of the vaccine with the new booster shots. According to a news segment by CBC News, the Federal Health Minister for Canada explains that to be fully vaccinated, there must now be a 3rd shot. Canada is not the only country. France and Israel are following suit. In other news segments by CNN this time, says that a 4th dose for the vaccine is already being administered to individuals. However, it was proven that still may not be effective to prevent the Omicron breakthrough infection. As I conclude, allow me to remind everyone that it is important for people to understand that things are not as black and white as we would like to believe. We must not completely ignore medical advice. However, we must use our critical thinking and our judgment to decide what we put in our own bodies. It is also imperative that while looking at the bigger picture of herd immunity, we do not endanger people who are not as privileged enough to enjoy good health. Madam Moderator, honorable judges, my most confused opponents, nobody has the right to impose mandatory vaccines on the population. They do not.
Thank you very much, Mr. James. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now heard the arguments presented from both teams, St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College and the Dominica State College. But our debate is not over yet. Both teams now have 5 minutes within which they can put together their rebuttals. Very often, debates are won not in the opening stages, but actually in the rebuttal. And the rebuttal provides us with an opportunity to separate the cream from the rest, as they would say, because at this time, the debaters, based on their ability to listen and recall the major points brought up by their opponents, now have an opportunity to try to weaken the arguments presented so that in the judge's mind, they may have a clearer picture of who would have won or who will win today's debate. In rebuttals, it is an opportunity to also restate some of the major points, perhaps if they did not come out as clearly as one would have wanted, but most importantly to show that while an argument may seem sound initially, there are always opportunities within which debaters can poke holes in the arguments of their opponent. I look forward to hearing what both the Dominica State College and the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College will present as their closing arguments within their rebuttal. The opposition will have the opportunity to go first, followed by the proposition. Thereafter, our judges will tabulate to determine not only the winning team, who will emerge the winners of the Windward Island Debating Competition 2022, but the overall best speaker. Yesterday, we had a very, very heated exchange between all our teams, and today, I look forward to the closing arguments. Our various teams represent some of the brightest minds from across our campuses in the OECS, and we want to encourage other young people to participate in debate as well. At this time, I wish to call on the Dominica State College to present their rebuttal. They will have 5 minutes. Dominica, are you ready?
Madam Moderator, my audience, not even the great Napoleon could force all of Europe to be vaccinated. I want everyone to rethink, reconsider, and reassess the discussion.
Moment. Team Dominica, could you start again? When you began your rebuttal, I do not believe the judges were able to hear you. So we want to be fair to you so that they can hear your argument. So start again, please.
Okay. Madam Moderator, not even the great Napoleon could force all of Europe to be vaccinated. I want us, for these 5 minutes, to rethink, reconsider, and reassess all that we've heard. Our stance is that countries do not have the right to impose vaccine mandates, and they have shown you why. It imposes on one's freedom of personal choice, freedom of expression, freedom of movement, and countless other rights you could have listed. Additionally, there are other considerations that need to be made, such as moral, ethical, and even personal health reasons. And that is why health is a personal matter and a personal responsibility. My colleague also showed you that there is great deception in medical field, and really and truly, as the issue of vaccines, pharmaceuticals really are based on helping us more, or does it also have a big financial payoff? But we are not here to refute the effectiveness of vaccines, no. This is not an anti-vaccine debate. The topic of the debate did not read, should we take the vaccine or not? Or should vaccines be recommended? No. The topic of this debate was, do countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates on their citizens to protect, quote unquote, said citizens? In other words, is it moral? Is it ethical? Is it justified? And if so, who gave them that power and authority? Who gave them the authority to stick a needle in my skin and put something in my body in my body. Pay attention to that. We have shown you exactly why it is wrong. We also want to elaborate a bit more, right? They talked a lot about Dominica and quote-unquote our COVID situation. Perhaps they do not live here, so they don't know. Did you know that the only reason that our cases went up is because said measures for COVID, such as quote-unquote mask wearing, physical distancing, and stricter protocols were relaxed for reopening of the economy and not because of failure of said measures? And it's only when these effective measures that kept us at a constant number of cases for a long week, you can check it on the news, for over 2 months we were at reasonably the same number, and only after the government announced that we need to get the economy started, cases started falling off. So is this a good metric to decide, hey, well, we've tried everything else effectively, so we failed? No, there was a failure to properly enforce these protocols. And the legal standards need to be held higher, because if people had believed so much, they would not have continued frolicking around. But do you think that if our governments are not even capable of enforcing mask mandates and social distancing mandates, that they would effectively be able to enforce a vaccine mandate? No, which on to my next point. Vaccine mandates will only cause more hesitancy and lead to the said resistance of vaccination, effectively defeating the purpose. I don't have to remind my people from St. Vincent what happened last year with your Prime Minister and his attempt to impose a vaccine mandate. We don't want that for anyone else. We don't want that for me working on the issue. We don't want that for anyone else. So why would you want to bring something that would bring violence, that would essentially bring people together in an event where the virus is not going to say, well, they're fighting my mandate. No, the virus is going to harbor its influence and actually create more chaos. And not only to mention, we already spoke about the deception of said vaccine. If I force you, if I push you, compel you to do something that you already have reservations about, the obvious question would be why? And of course, as a reasonable human being, I would be more appalled to taking such consideration into place. I also want to come into one, as I end, that health is not just a state of physical well-being, as was mentioned. Health is a complete state of physical, social, and mental well-being. With vaccine mandates, there's a limited spectrum on just the physical well-being. What about our mental state? What about our social states? Mandates create mental anguish. People are afraid, as we have said. People are hesitant. People are resistant. Mandates create problems. People get anxiety. What about the people who have the side effects, as my colleague said, that themselves are disturbed because of these mandates? They're under duress. If you're under duress, you're not healthy, are you, right? What about our social situation? We heard the long talk about vaccinated versus unvaccinated and how the unvaccinated were criticized. Do we really want social apathy? My friends, reconsider, reassess, rethink. Vaccine mandates are really not the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Team Dominica. At this time, I wish to offer profuse apologies to both our debating teams. The interval that should have been provided for our debaters before the rebuttal was supposed to be 5 minutes. However, due to the fact that in the initial part of the debate, a 2-minute interval was given, there was a miscalculation. So we apologize profusely to both our debating teams. We now welcome the team member from the St. Vincent and the Grenadines Community College who will close our arguments today in our rebuttals.
Madam Moderator, allow me to reiterate the point that we must let logic trump our emotions. Allow me to reference the time of Napoleon. Granted, I was not alive then, but I am sure that the life expectancy then was lower than the life expectancy now due to the rampant amount of diseases that was plaguing our populations. No, because of the implementation of mandates for vaccination, we have eradicated these diseases and increased the life expectancy of our people. Infant mortality fell 5% because of the implementation of these mandates. And as such, governments do have a right to implement them. As our worthy opponent stated, human rights law states that we as humans have a right to our religion and we have our right to our religious practices. But the implementation of vaccine mandates accounts for these rights by allowing exemptions to persons with religious impediments and those who are at risk to face adverse effects by taking the vaccines. The government is not a monster. Compliance is always a choice. But our actions have consequences. And at some point, we have to ask the question, how heavy a weight does one's individual choice carry when put in relation to the public good? Can you imagine if we all woke up one day and suddenly decided to invoke our right to drive as fast as we possibly could, disregarding government speed limits? Can you imagine the death toll? These speed limits are put in place to protect the health of our population, much like vaccine mandates. The notions that one's health is their personal responsibility is as selfish as it is inaccurate. Because here in SVG, our Ministry of Health states that our health is a shared responsibility. It is not our own. We have to work collaboratively to ensure the succession of our populations. And our opponent stated that it's only a physical aspect. What about the mental stability, the peace of mind that one is guaranteed by knowing that there is something, an extra layer protecting them from contracting these deadly diseases? This is why governments do have a right. Of course they have a right. This is the exact reason why we elect our governments. As they said, who gave the government the right? We did when we elected them to protect us. We elected them to have our best interest in mind, no matter what it is. And they do. And this is why they make the hard choices. They make the difficult choices so that we do not have to. Can you imagine we making those choices for ourselves? If not a mandate, then what? I heard nothing about alternative because, as we stated, vaccine mandates are a last resort, put in place after all options have been stressed, have been done. And we tried quarantine, we tried mask wearing, it did not work. So where do we go from here? We move forward, we implement mandates, we protect our population. Would you prefer no action? Do you think polio would have been eradicated if not for mandates? Do you think that we would have been where we are now? Can you imagine the headlines if our governments choose to simply step back and allow our populations to suffer? Let me spell it out for you. Local governments allow citizens to die. Why are we electing them? Let us let our logic trump emotions. Let us continue to preserve our population.
Thank you very much, Team SVG. Ladies and gentlemen, now that the debate is over, we now engage in discussion on your views on today's moot, focusing on vaccine mandates and evaluating key areas that are essential to today's debate. Both teams have presented their best. They have submitted their rebuttals, their closing arguments. It is only left to our judges now to determine who will emerge victorious. Do you know who might be our winners today? We're inviting members of our YouTube audience to contribute to our discourse, and we ourselves will engage in some reflection on today's topic. And I wish to repeat our motto at this time. Countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. Very often our discussion on vaccine mandates in the Caribbean have intersected many topics: religion and the presumed end of times linked to vaccine mandates and the use of vaccination. We've also had the discussion on rights. Do state and national rights trump individual rights? What responsibilities do governments have to protect their citizens, not just in a national context, but in a pandemic that has impacted every state in the world? Beyond this is another important point where we can also consider areas of communication with our public on vaccine mandates and the aim of preserving health and well-being of citizens. I realize in our chat that our commentators are sharing messages of congratulations to both teams. We're also inviting you to share your views on the topic, not necessarily the debaters. What are some views that come to mind when you heard our debating topic? Countries have a right to impose vaccine mandates to protect the health of their populations. An interesting study came out which indicated that close to 5.13 billion individuals globally had received a COVID-19 vaccine worldwide, and that was according to the New York Times. In the Caribbean, what are our national vaccination levels? What factors impact the selection or the decision to take a vaccine? Very often I reflect on the communication that takes place between citizens and also governments as it pertains to the selection of options as to whether to impose or not to impose vaccine mandates, or the power of technology in sharing information and misinformation. Very often you receive text messages saying that if you take the vaccine, you'll die in 3 years, and there are stories of gloom and doom. And it is very interesting to see how a society is able to discern choices. What information becomes credible? What information do you use to make critical decisions that have to pertain to your health? In addition to that, an important factor, I believe, that comes into a discourse such as this is the element of trust. Do you trust your leaders to make good decisions for you? What has been your relationship with diseases and vaccination? In communities in the developing world and minority groupings, has their experience with healthcare professionals always been the most equitable and just? And this often enters the conversation. Another level of trust that we can also consider when we reflect on today's topic is our own trust in local authorities and professionals, medical professionals, whom prior to the pandemic in particular, we placed our lives in their hands. We trusted that their expertise in caring for those who were ill was sound. But in the context of the pandemic, we begin to question. And questioning is not necessarily a bad thing, but how do we question? What information do we use? What do we contest different ideas with? And are we simply relying on information that comes to us via social media? What constitutes research? Because very often people tell you, I did my research, I am taking or I am not taking, but the research is, my neighbor tell me she not taking it. Somebody got a jab and they got a rash and something grew on them, and that constitutes the research that they would have done. So vaccine mandates continue to be very relevant in terms of our discourse, and it's important to always be able to have conversations with our citizens and to be able to weigh the information that comes before us. I know that many of you are eager to find out what it is our judges have come up with in terms of our winners, but I wish to just let you know later on in the programming what our judges will be able to provide us with in terms of winners. There will be a presentation of certificates. There will be the announcement of the Best Speaker Awards, the winners of the semifinals, the overall Best Speaker Award, the Special Award for J.A. George Irish Memorial Award, the Best Rebuttal, and I'm looking forward to hearing who emerged as the winner of that particular award, the Caricard Trophy for Team Excellence in the WIDC, the runner-up award, and the winners of the finals. I also wish to remind you at this time of what our judges will be using to deliberate. So it's not going to be based on the island that they preferred, but rather our